Hey everybody, welcome to today's episode of Disruptors. We have a very special episode for you today. We're going to be talking about my 7 favorite episodes and why they're my top 7. Now, as we do this, some people might get their feelings hurt. It was really, really tough. There were very many honorable mentions on the bubbles, so we'll go through them here. Now, guys, I am on a mission to create 100 millionaires. The information on this show alone isn't enough to help you become a millionaire. If you'll take consistent action, you will become one. And guys, if you guys do get value today, please hit that subscribe button. That way we can tell YouTube our stuff is good and we can create more millionaires. All right, so starting off, the very first one of 7, and this is in no particular order. The first one is Sharon Lechter. I got to meet Sharon earlier this year, and now she's a good friend. If you don't know Sharon, she is one of the authors of Rich Dad Poor Dad, but from what it appears to be, probably the main author of Rich Dad Poor Dad. Now, for me, what I got value out of her was that she not only inspired so many with the book Rich Dad Poor Dad, but she also has a mission in creating financial literacy amongst women. So one thing that I guess was not a problem I was aware of is that there are a lot of women traditionally who just let the man run the show, right? They had the career and they stayed at home. And what ended up happening was if, those men either passed away early and left a mess for the women, or if they divorced, right? And now the woman is left with nothing altogether. So financial literacy amongst women was really, really important to her. And on top of that, had no idea the passion in creating financial literacy all across the board. She shared the story of how her son, when he went to ASU, racked up massive credit card debt, right? Because those schools are just pitching you credit cards left and right. So her son racked up massive credit card debt, and she made it her mission to make it not possible for students, college students specifically, to rack up crazy credit card debt. And she got to work with President Bush and I believe President Obama to remove those what's the word I'm looking for? The taking advantage, the vulture behavior of these credit card companies. And the third thing was that she talked about the evolution for all of us as entrepreneurs. So as an entrepreneur, we want to make money, we want to wholesale, we want to flip, make a lot of active income. But the next step is creating a business that you can hand off. So we talked about creating trust, foundations, structures, contracts, things that today makes your company feel valuable. But if you ever want to have the ability to exit at a decent valuation, you need to have these documents in place right now so that you can eventually prepare for a sale. So definitely check this out. It's one of my top 7 favorite episodes this year.
Interesting story, because I grew up in a very lower middle class home. My dad we lived in a little tiny house between my mom's beauty shop and my dad's used car lot. I was embarrassed by where we lived. Mm-hmm. And my friends' parents were, corporate officers, CEOs, or military officers. And I was like, that's what I wanted to be. So I decided I was going to be, become a professional, right? Mm-hmm. A sophisticated professional. But at the same time, I didn't realize that what I was learning was amazing, because at the age of 10, I've been a real estate investor since I was 10, mm-hmm. because I had to go scrub out bathrooms between tenants because my dad had rental properties. He had orange groves that he always said, that's cash flow, Sharon. Yes, we hope the land's going to appreciate, but every year it pays for itself through oranges. Mm-hmm. And so all these things were just like embedded in my brain. Mm-hmm. And years later, those orange groves are now part of SeaWorld. So, I learned through the process of how to invest in income-producing assets. Yeah. My favorite word, asset. Mm-hmm. My favorite word on earth. And my latest tagline is assets are sexy. Mm-hmm. But I, of course, did not give it the due at the time. I wanted to become this professional. Mm-hmm. So I got only woman in my accounting classes, became one of the very first women in public accounting. I had arrived. I was very successful. And then at 25, my parents looked a whole lot smarter, because I was working incredibly long hours, having a great time in Atlanta, but not in control of my life. Mm-hmm. And said, this is not what it's all cracked up to be, because I'm not a really good employee. I like to be in control of my own life. And that's at 25 is when I left public accounting and started my entrepreneurial career.
Wow. So being exposed to entrepreneurship at 10 years old, and both sides, mom and dad.
Yeah, exactly. And I did not realize that not everybody else learned about money at home.
Mm-hmm.
I just assumed that was my life. Everybody's life was like that. And when I got out into the real world in public accounting, I realized how few people understand money.
Yeah.
How few people get beyond go to school, get a good job, and get a job that you go to every single day and exchange time for money. And I also had the benefit of learning how businesses created success, and probably even more importantly, how businesses failed from the inside out as a CPA. So it was like, wow, people need to be educated about money.
Yeah. Isn't it funny though? Because you're exposed to that and you think, you might just roll your eyes, it's like, oh, why are they doing this? You're embarrassed, right? But looking back, like that's what, was the best option. Entrepreneurship really wasn't, to my understanding, really a popular thing. It seems like, real estate's been around forever. You got the infomercials promoting it forever. But entrepreneurship didn't really seem to be like a big buzzword until it feels like the last 10 years. Is that accurate? I mean,
No, you're absolutely right. It was kind of like, you can't get a job, become an entrepreneur, right? It's like the old term, I'm a consultant because I lost my job, right? So it's all about the nomenclature at the time. But entrepreneurship is growing, and particularly for women, because those women that feel like they've been stopped by the glass ceiling, well, they start their own business. They don't have the glass ceiling anymore. They have the ability to create their future. But entrepreneurship truly is the American dream.
Yeah.
And, for those of you not in America, it still is a dream of financial freedom. And you can't control what your employer decisions are, but you can control your own. We can control three things, Steve: our thoughts, our words, our actions. And unfortunately, when you have a job, you can't necessarily control your actions because you got to follow the rules. So.
Right. And then you look at movies, right? Or you look at the media, really entrepreneurs, the only ones you really get exposed to are like Elon Musk, Steve Jobs, Jeff Bezos, right? Or like in the movies, it's always the guy with his failed business, like, oh, you failed this one. Oh, you failed. Like he's always the black sheep in the family. It's not a lot of movies, like maybe The Founder. And even then they made him look like a bad guy in that movie, right? Where we're really preaching entrepreneurship. So you got to see it from the inside, and then you got to look at the books from other people and see how their business is run. So it gave you a lot of insight. So you decide, okay, I'm not going to be just a CPA. I'm going to go off on my own. So what did you do?
Well, this is kind of a funny story. One of my clients at 25 asked me to leave with him. He was buying a company out of bankruptcy because some new technology. And I still remember going back to my condo in Atlanta with the pros and cons, because this was before PCs, before cell phones. I know it's hard to imagine, but it was the old yellow legal pad, pros and cons. And it didn't help me a bit. I could argue both sides. But my hand took off across the top of the page and wrote, why not? And that is still my mantra today. Why not do something different? Why not solve a problem or serve a need? That's what a successful business does. Why not take that path less traveled? So I made the decision to leave public accounting, and within a few short weeks, I realized it was a horrible decision because I found all kinds of corruption at this new company. But had I not made that decision, because it was still the worst business decision of my life, I wouldn't have met Michael Lechter, we are now celebrating 44 years of marriage. So I tell everybody, Napoleon Hill said it, out of every adversity comes the seed of an equal or greater benefit. So my worst business decision gave me my best life decision. So
Gotcha. Awesome. Well, that's amazing. Congratulations, 44 years.
Thank you.
Another one of my favorite episodes this year is my episode with Brent Daniels. You guys know him as TTP, or, the real life version of Johnny Bravo with the big hair and the big biceps. But we talked about some interesting things that I don't think a lot of people talk about on the air. They kind of talk about it off the air, right? Conversations about what's really happening behind the scenes. So we talked about gurus on social media perhaps not doing what they say they're doing, right? So that's the first thing. And second thing, how many people get it wrong in the business? This is whether you're in the wholesaling side or the education side, how they spend it all, right? And so, he went through that journey himself. When he was younger, he lost everything in his business. And then how a lot of people don't have the right financial thermostat. And so they're setting themselves up for failure because they're not mentally comfortable with making a lot of money, how they'll self-sabotage them all along the way. And so they're spending money just as fast as they make it. So I thought that was a really good point. And the last one was hustle season and financial intelligence. So again, a lot of people want to hustle. And that is so critical, right? You cannot get out of the gate without hustling. So you got to have that hustle muscle when you start. But at some point, the concept of what got you here won't get you there. So you got to learn financial literacy, financial intelligence. And he talks about building wealth, right? And he also talked about the fourth thing. The reason why I originally asked him to come back onto the show was he went on a rant while we were at the Arizona REIA about how rentals, we get it all wrong, and how if you want to create wealth, don't buy cash flowing assets, buy assets that you know will appreciate. So I believe a slightly controversial take. So definitely check out this episode of Brent Daniels and see if you agree with him about the gurus, the financial intelligence, and rental properties. Have you noticed that all the guys that were banging the gongs every time they closed a deal or signed a contract?
Where are they?
I don't know. I don't know what they're doing.
Yeah. Well, all those big teams got washed out in 2022.
Right.
Yeah. Overhead.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's just financial literacy.
Yeah.
How much income versus expenses and how many assets do you have over your liabilities?
Right.
And I'm telling you, your wholesaling business is not an asset. Your wholesaling business is the cash machine that helps you buy the assets.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're not taking money home and then buying it into long-term investments that's going to pay you over a long period of time, then you're making a huge mistake. But that's financial literacy 101.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I think that the biggest issue that we run into is from the time we were 0 to 12, that's what sets our financial thermostat. Mm-hmm. And in my life during that time, my dad adopted me when I was 2. My biological dad and my mom, I mean, my mom's my mom, but my biological dad bounced. He loved partying. So my mom's like, boom, at like 6, I was 6 months old. So I'm living in a bathtub in my uncle's house that he rented. Yeah. And then my mom met my dad at a company called Garrett that turned into Allied Signal, that turned into Honeywell. Mm-hmm. And my dad moved us when I was 9 to Australia to get a pay raise. So we moved to Melbourne, Australia for a year. Yeah. And then we moved in junior high to get another bump up. My dad moved to Frankfurt, Germany for a year. I went there for a whole summer. And so just leveling up during those prime time years, it was kind of like lower income, lower middle class. I mean, we were doing okay, but it wasn't anything crazy. But that sets certain things in your brain. You know what I mean? It set when I got out of college and I made $100,000, I was like, oh my gosh, that is a lot. This is a lot. It took my dad so many years to make all this, right? And we just didn't talk about money. We didn't talk about being an entrepreneur. We didn't talk about sales. We didn't talk about these things, right? It was like dad goes to work, mom goes to work, and we play sports and get together as a family and have dinner every night.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I think it took me a while to be around people that their financial thermostats were either forced or raised really high, and to be able to understand, okay, wait a second. I need to buy assets. I need to be putting the money into these things that are going to pay me for a long period of time and think longer term and not just be so, hand to mouth with it, because you get to that upper limit of your financial thermostat and you feel like I don't deserve it. So I'm going to go hire people. I'm going to go spend money on this marketing channel. I'm going to go and promote myself and do all these things, right? I think that's the problem that real estate entrepreneurs have, and it crushes them. Crushes them
to follow you around.
Yeah.
Get the videographers.
Bro, we have a friend that literally put a billboard out when he hit 1 million followers.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Trying to remember who this was.
Don't worry about it. It's not at $1 million anymore. You know what I mean? It's just, I think that if you focus on keeping your head down, finding really great deals, building a real business, pulling yourself outside of that business and being a real business owner, making sure that it's raining really good inbound leads at some point, you can have a really great cash machine that helps you buy assets. And then you can teach, and then you could coach, and then you can go from a perspective of, hey, listen, I know what the worst looks like, and I know what like the high life looks like, and I'm going to steer you in the direction that makes sense.
Today's podcast is brought to you by motivatedleads.com. With them, you can get $300 worth of quality local leads sent exclusively to your inbox by just mentioning my name. I've used them, and they're one of the best producers of solid seller leads on a local level. And they fully guarantee the leads that they send you. To get your $300 free credit, just head over to motivatedleads.com, hit the Claim Your Area button, and let them know that I sent you. Another one of my favorite episodes was the one with Jerry Norton. So if you don't know Jerry Norton, he's flipping mastery. He was huge on YouTube before I even created a YouTube account over 6 years ago. Now, Jerry has been a forward-leaning thought leader on what's happening in wholesaling inside the industry as far as regulations go, right? So we had a very long conversation about the real estate world, wholesaling, flipping, and the evolution of wholesaling, and then adding novations, and then finally adding installment method. If you guys don't recall, I had Devin Robinson in here talking about the installment method in November of 2023, saying that you had to learn the skill because regulations are coming. Well, those regulations happened, and we talked about it on this episode. So we talked about regulations. We talked about potentially putting together a wholesale committee, right? Something that he's been very strong proponent of. And then the other thing we talked about is the actual ways to deal with the regulations. Because installment method with Devin Robinson, I think that's a brilliant idea. It's the reason why I've been promoting it so much. I do see value in it. But the easiest way to get around all these regulation laws, as far as wholesaling, is just buy the property. And he talked about what he's doing to empower his community to buy all these properties. So you don't have to worry about wholesaling or novating or installment. You just buy it outright. So he talks a lot about that. And the last thing we talked about was the importance of realtors. Now, realtors, it's a funny situation here. When we first started this podcast, we had realtors and wholesalers, right? It was basically the first 10 or 12 episodes, realtor, wholesaler, realtor, wholesaler. And we found out pretty quickly that the realtors and the wholesalers mix really, really well, much like oil and water. It doesn't mix together at all. But Jerry and I have been saying for a long time the value in being a licensed real estate agent as you're wholesaling and buying property. So we talked about the importance of realtors inside your business and how to collaborate with realtors, offering them a commission to represent you so that they can double end the deals, which means you get to buy the deal. So definitely check out this episode with Jerry Norton.
Well, I think most of the people that talk about anything related to wholesaling is the education space, and the education space thrives on, newbies coming in. And if you think about wholesaling, it's like the last frontier of entrepreneurship with a low barrier to entry. I mean, think about it. A single piece of paper, an assignment of contract, a single piece of paper, you can make millions of dollars with zero entry into the business and no money, frankly.
Yeah.
Where else in the world can you do that? Wholesaling's the last business model where a brand new person with no experience, no barrier to entry, no requirement whatsoever to get in, can learn how to do it, and with a single piece of paper and no money, transact millions of dollars.
Yeah.
Well, that's not looked upon very highly, right? Like that door is going to get shut, and that's what we're seeing.
Right. And so
what it means, where I'm going with that, Steve, is like, I think nobody wants to talk about it because it's kind of like, oh, I don't want everyone to get discouraged. I don't want new people coming in the business to not want to come in the business because now there's some friction. And I think that's my perception. I don't know if that's true.
Yeah.
That's part of why I don't think people are talking about it very much.
If that's your perspective, that's slightly irresponsible.
Yeah.
Right.
I have a moral dilemma with that.
Yeah. What's your moral dilemma?
Well, I don't want to be telling people, hey, get into wholesaling. It's a great business, which, by the way, it's not going to work out so good for you because they're stopping the newbie from getting into the business. Instead, I want to say, hey, here's what's happening. You can still get into this, but we've got to do things differently now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like your barrier to entry is going to start to go up some here, but you can do it, and let's figure this out.
Yeah.
And I've got ideas around what we need to do to figure it out. But
so you started in 2004. I started in 2007, right? So we got a chance to
you're like a dinosaur.
we got to experience a few different things and the market shifts and the regulations that occurred.
Yeah.
And one of the ones that really pissed me off, probably the one that pissed me off the most, was the Dodd-Frank Act.
Yeah.
Right? And because the Dodd-Frank Act came out to protect homeowners from these people that are quote unquote equity stripping and this and that. And so we were doing short sales, right? Shout out to Matthew Potter. He's the host of Part in the Disruption. I would go out there and market myself as a short sale expert, but then he would do all the paperwork. Like he was the one that was on hold with the banks.
He had
and this
he had the worst job.
He had the worst end, but he didn't have to pay any marketing expenses. I took care of all the marketing, right? So, but we did a lot of short sales. And when Dodd-Frank passed, the thing that passed in Dodd-Frank was that 21 days within foreclosure, they could not start a short sale because they considered that to be predatory. And so after that passed, we had so many homeowners, because like, you know how it goes with denial.
Yeah.
I'm in foreclosure, I'm in denial, this is no big deal, there's no big deal. And then there's a window where they're like, crap, I'm in the bad spot. I need help.
And it's the 11th hour.
It's the 11th hour, well past the 21-day window. And they reach out to us, and all we can say is, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Because of Dodd-Frank, I can't help you save your house.
And they'd go to foreclosure.
And they go to foreclosure.
Yeah.
Like it was so painful. It was so mindless. As a professional, I'm frustrated because you're holding my hand, or you're preventing me. You're holding my hands behind my back, preventing me from helping people.
Yeah.
And like, that's the thing that I thrive on. That's what fulfills me. So I can't do that. And now we got these regulations.
Those are doing the same thing, because if you think about it, let's say that they get rid of the assignment of contract and we double close.
Right.
Okay, well, when you double close, you introduce more fees, right? You gotta pay fees when you buy it, pay fees when you turn around and sell it, and you gotta pay transactional funding. Where are those additional fees coming from?
Not to mention potential transfer taxes depending on other states.
Some states have high transfer tax. So where that additional fee, those additional fees to double close, who's paying those?
Homeowner.
Not the business owner. You gotta make a profit.
It.
Yeah, you're in business, right? So that gets passed on to the homeowner, the very person that is supposed to be protected.
Yeah. So you and I are still going to have the same targeted profit, same profit targets, because we have the same marketing expenses. Our marketing expenses didn't go lower because of new regulation, right? So our profit targets are still the same. So the money is coming from somewhere. It's coming out of the homeowner's pocket. What we could pay went down because of these costs, because of these rules and regulations that are coming in place.
Yeah. And if they stop wholesaling altogether, like let's just hypothetically say, and everyone's going to think this is like outrageous, but there's some things going on that very well we could start to see this happen real soon. South Carolina's like right here. But let's just say that they did that. Let's just hypothetically say no more wholesaling. Like you can't do it. License or no license, you can't do it. Well, what's going to happen now? Well, I mean, the number one method to still acquire discounted properties is going to be to buy the property, like just actually close and buy it.
The way it used to be before wholesaling became popular.
Yeah. So now if I have to actually buy your property, homeowner, and I got to now introduce all kinds of fees because now I have to fund that purchase. Because what's not going to change is people are going to buy properties and then you have people over here that want to sell at a discount, and then you have people over here that want to buy. The middle there of acquisitions is always going to exist. Whether it's directly to the flipper or some type of wholesalers in the middle of it. Well, now you're introducing all those fees. And so that's, again, it's just going to push this. It's going to come out of the seller's pocket.
It comes out of the seller's pocket. The other thing too is, I'm a, shocker to people that are watching the show. I'm a free market capitalist. All right. And
I did not know that.
And being a free market capitalist, as irritating as it is to have a bunch of wholesalers in your market, right? We're in Phoenix. This is the guru capital of the world. It's also like a wholesaler per capita. I got to imagine it's the highest here. We have a lot of competition here, right? So as irritating as it is, have a lot of competition, it still serves as a function to create demand, and that we have to be our best to win the business. With the regulation, it's kind of like, it's really hard to go and start like an oil company, right? I mean, Chevron, Mobil, all these other guys, they made it pretty hard. Start a bank right now, it's pretty hard. Like the bank we're a part of, it took them 17 years.
Yeah.
from when they started to the bank was launched, right? It takes a lot of time and effort because of regulations. And with the regulation in place, you were saying a moment ago, like all the wholesalers that want to come in, they can't really get in anymore because the restrictions can be in place, making it easier for people like you and me to buy properties. And who doesn't win in that scenario? The homeowner.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, this is exactly what's happening with the NAR settlement right now, where, it's predicted that 1 million licensed agents are going to leave the industry. Well, there's only 1.5. So what's going to happen to the other 500,000 that do figure it out?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're going to kill it. They're
Right.
going to absolutely annihilate their business because you've made the entry harder, right? You've made the business model harder, right? So wholesaling is going to be the same thing. If the newbie can't come in today and get a contract and assign it with no money, and it's now left up to just the people with money and with capital, then the highly capitalized investors are going to be the ones that get all the deals.
It's a funny time in the real estate right now, right? So in the realtor world, the rich can get richer and the less adequate are going to be gone. And wholesaling and flipping, really, the richer can get richer and the less competent are going to be gone.
Yeah.
Another one on the list might surprise you. It's RJ Bates. He's crazy. He's an insane person. We've been going back and forth on social media. He's accused me of making wholesaling illegal, right? He's accused me of passing legislation to outlaw wholesaling. And, I've been a little nicer to RJ recently in these days because it appears that if RJ doesn't like you, he will have you investigated by the federal government. So be careful with RJ Bates. Be nicer to him because he wields a lot of power. So what we talked about on our episode was what happened that led to the cancellation of his TV show, because he was on A&E TV and he recorded a full season of zombie houses, and then it all kind of disappeared like it never happened. So definitely check out the episode for that. Also, we talked about other gurus in the industry bashing his name. I would say bashing his good name, but it's RJ Bates. So they were bashing his name. So definitely tune in for that. And then we also talked about how he did 50 deals in 50 states in 50 days again. So he did it 1 year to tool up for Closers Olympics, and then he did it again. And this time he carried a lot of momentum with him. Been really happy for him to see his success. So we talked about how he was able to do it again. And then, the key to my heart here, we talked about sales. So he's got the King Closers formula, right? Which is pretty cute. And then we have our sales process. And so we talked about the differences, the nuances between his sales process and my sales process. Now, truth be told, his sales process is pretty good. It's pretty effective. I see what he's doing with his community, and it works for all of them. I think it's a little bit harder to scale with that model, but it certainly works. I will not question that. And so we talked about the difference between his sales style and our sales style. So definitely check that out.
It was crazy. I mean, to have Pilgrim Media reach out to us and say, hey, we want you to be on Zombie House Flipping on A&E, an established show. This is going to be the 5th season. It had always been in Orlando. And so they were like, the new idea is there's going to be a team in Tampa, Orlando, Dallas, and Fort Worth. And you guys will have a run of like 5 episodes, and then we'll go to the next team for 5 episodes. And then that way we keep the show running basically year round. And it was awesome. I mean, we were super excited to do it. Once we made the decision to do it, there was some apprehension at first, especially for me. I was like, I am who I am. If you want me to be scripted, I can't even do a script on my calls with sellers. It's not going to happen. And they were like, no, the hilarious part about me being canceled is the reason why they reached out to us is because they called Brent Daniels and asked Brent to do it. And Brent said, I don't want to do it. And then they found out Brent lived in Arizona, and they were like, well, we don't want to go west of Texas. And Brent said, Texas, you seen RJ? And he was like, go check out RJ's YouTube channel. So they went and watched my YouTube channel and said, that's the guy we want. That personality.
That personality is uncancelable.
Right. So what they got They canceled, even though that's what they wanted. So we were in the middle of flipping. Like I couldn't show up to Pardon the Disruption a lot because of the amount of flips we had going on. We were in the middle of flipping 10 houses at once. We had completed multiple episodes. We got the honor of being the season premiere of all the teams. So that was like a big deal. Like they looked at the footage and they said, hey, Fort Worth is going to be the season premiere. And it aired December 3rd, 2022. And feedback was amazing from everyone at A&E and Pilgrim Media. And some people said it was good. Some people on social media said it sucked. I got the Twitter, where it's like, who put this fat guy? Yeah. Who decided to go get a big white guy with a big beard that's fat to be on TV? I saw some of that and it was like, okay, this is the reality of being on TV. And I was like, all right, this is what I expected. Like, this is going to be the new norm for us. And the middle of that week, second episode's coming out on Saturday. I get a call from the executive producer, and she said, there's a tweet from a gentleman that says that the hoodie you were wearing in the episode had a white supremacy logo. And I'm like, that's clearly not the case. It was a gift. It was a hoodie that was given to me that had Viking symbols on it. And the symbol is a Vout nut, which is a very common Viking symbol. It's on almost everything Viking related. But this person with 3 followers on Twitter at the time sent that tweet out, and it red alerted A&E, which then red alerted Disney. And so then they had to ask me questions. They wanted to know, was my name really RJ Bates III? Why did I name my son Trinity? Why did my contractor put a Roman numeral 3 on one of the projects? And she was doing it as like a symbol, like, hey, I did this for you because you flipped this house and you did such a great job. I put a Roman numeral 3 on this back deck. And they thought that was me showing that I was a part of the 3 percenters, which I guess is a white supremacy group.
Oh, didn't know that.
Then me either. Then when they told me that, I was like, can you explain what this is? What group did I join? And they asked me those questions. I told them the truth. The next Saturday, I mean, there was no concern about us being like canceled over this. This was kind of like, hey, we're just asking.
Dotting our I's, crossing our T's.
Yeah. Okay, we're all good. The next Saturday, my son had a hockey game at 10:30. The episode's supposed to air at 10. So I'm walking around outside the building with it on my cell phone, and a rerun of Orlando from the season before airs when our second episode is supposed to air. And so I start texting people like, hey, what's up? And then I start getting texts from like the contractors and vendors that were supposed to be, featured on that episode. Like, what happened? Where's our episode?
Yeah.
And everybody's like, we don't know what's happening. We don't know what's happening. And I got that sinking feeling like, oh, this is not good.
Yeah.
And 2-3 hours later, me and my son are driving in the car, and I got the call, you've been canceled. We don't know why. We'll have answers for you on Monday. So Saturday, Sunday, I have to go with no answers. That Monday, everybody on our team, every single person lost their job. I had to see people pack up out of their apartments.
Oh, what, like the media team?
Yes.
People that work on the
team,
show.
Every single person. I mean, a cameraman. The cameramen that were our team were the original cameramen of Zombie House Flip, and they had moved from Orlando to Florida, moved there, or to Fort Worth, had moved their entire families. I mean, they were fired. You have no job now. I mean, it was ruthless over a harmless hoodie that meant nothing.
Or over an idiot tweet.
Yeah, I mean, that's really what it is, because the hoodie itself means nothing. The symbol is not racist in nature. I'm not racist. There's no proof of that. And basically what I've been told is it went to one attorney at Disney, and he basically said, how many episodes have we aired of this guy? 1. Just pull the plug.
Yeah, it's crazy to me. Because like you said, the consequences, right? Because I didn't even think about like their team. I'm just thinking about you,
Yeah.
your dad, and your your
Yeah.
contractors, your hard money loans, and all these other things. Like it's a setback for you and your operations. You
Yeah.
stopped everything to focus on this. But yeah, there were a whole bunch of other people that got.
Oh, dude, and they paid a lot of money to fire us
Mhm.
because, like, there was trade outs. So, like, for example, hey, you will mention Steve Trang flooring.
Mhm.
If Steve Trang will donate $10,000 worth of flooring to this house,
Mhm.
and so the flooring company says, absolutely, I'll do this to be on A&E over and over and over again, because this is the whole thing about these shows. They just keep getting aired
Mhm.
over and over. And then the episode doesn't air. So now you're coming to me going, you need to pay my $10,000.
Right.
Well, A&E just took care of it. They stroked a check for every single person. They paid us for every single episode that we filmed
Yeah.
to not be aired. I mean, over nothing. And the most disappointing part for me was, one, the people getting fired over something that I felt responsible for. Even though I shouldn't feel the responsibility of
Yeah.
wearing it, but that's still, every day that I filmed, I wore a black t-shirt that said titanium, except for one. That one day was my birthday. I wore the Viking hoodie because it was a gift that was given to me. And it only made the scene for like 3 seconds. And it was because they showed the back of it because we did floor to ceiling marble on the fireplace. So they wanted to get a cool angle of me looking up the floor to ceiling. And that's when it showed. It bothered me that so many people's lives were impacted by it. And then the next thing that really bothered me was the fact that I had to explain to so many people what happened. And no matter what, when you look at someone and say, I got fired, I got canceled, then the immediate question is why?
Mhm.
And it's not like me. I have to say why. And that's why Cassie always gives me a hard time. She's like, stop talking about you being a white supremacist. Stop saying that, you got fired for being a racist. And it's like, but that's what they said. It's not true. But I think a lot of times we want to run from that. And the first couple of months, man, I mean, it impacted me. I mean,
Right.
I probably, first 3 months of 2023, go look at my YouTube channel, go look at my podcast. There's nothing. I sat at my desk staring into a abyss going, did I just kill my business? Because, dude, the moment this happened, our team, people started quitting. I mean,
Why?
I don't know. I mean, was it an icky situation? I mean, imagine if you're a black guy that works for me and I come in and I say, I got fired because I wore this hoodie and it was a white supremacist logo. And then you go home and you have to tell your wife why your boss got fired. I mean, suddenly it starts like, and then business is not doing good because like I'm not being proactive. Cassie's not being like, dude, we were like emotionally like distraught. And then also we had all these houses that we had to finish flipping that were supposed to be for the show. So not super profitable because you're basically over rehabbing them. I mean, there was a lot of negative energy in the building. Even though we were trying to like keep it going, it was a full reboot of like everything. A lot of people left. The ones that stayed didn't surprise me. The ones that left didn't surprise me. But also just me and Cassie had to hit a reset button on like up here on how we were going to overcome that.
And I remember you shared with me when it went down, and I was pretty upset about it as well.
Yeah.
And I went to the team. I was like, "Hey, I'm going to record a video. You remember what I was talking about?
Yes.
Right? I'm going to talk about how I'm a white supremacist.
Yes.
Like, Steve, we will not support you in this venture." Right?
Yeah, you were like, you said that, and I was like, bro, I love you, but I don't know if this is the right move. I don't know if you should do this or not. I freely talk about it now. I mean, when it first happened, I got told by a lot of people like, hey, keep it under wraps. you don't want Disney coming after you. But at this point, I think everyone needs to know why it happened. I mean, like we just were hanging out with Dolmar and Keisha, and they were like, we still get people asking what happened to the Fort Worth team. And I'm like, oh, we got canceled. Like, hey, let them know. Like, I mean, it is what it is. I think Jamil had the best perspective out of anyone. He said, what does being on TV do for you? It gives you the opportunity to build your brand by saying you're on TV. You were on TV. No one can ever take that away from you.
Yeah.
He goes, in fact, you probably got the better end of this. You got one episode and then you're done. And like, move on with your life. He's like, you could be like me where you just have to do it over and over and over again. And I will say there was a part of me that really enjoyed it though. I mean, it was like a new creative side. I mean, you create a lot of content. It was like, once I figured out how much goes into it and creating it, like me and the executive producer were really like clicking on finding new ways to bring energy to a show. So I missed that. And there were some really funny moments that'll never be seen. I wish they would just release it. Like, come on, let us see it. But yeah.
So now you can officially put the As Seen on TV
Yeah.
on your postcards.
It's on my song.
Is it?
Yeah. Have you heard the song?
I have not heard your song.
You have not heard The King Closer?
No.
Did you know that I released a song?
No.
Well, let's let the world know. As of May 3rd, 2024, if you go on to Spotify, Apple Music, you search The King Closer, there's going to be a song, RJ Bates III and the Dropout Kings. That's it's my official song. It's my first ever single.
All right. Maybe I'll download it. We'll see.
It ends with explicit word as seen on TV.
There you go. Hey, Disruptors, if you're struggling to scale your business due to a lack of capital for your deals, this message is for you. I've been part of the Collective Genius Mastermind for over 4 years now, and one of the biggest benefits I get as a member is access to 100% financing for fix and flips. If you're doing at least 10 deals a year, want to network with top-tier investors from across the country, and need access to 100% financing to continue scaling, go to 100percentmoney.com. I've had my friend and CEO of the Collective Genius, Jason Medley, put together a short video with all the details. That's at 100percentmoney.com. Another great episode we had was with Santini Lancioni. This is one that just came out a couple of months ago. He flew in all the way from New Jersey to talk about his humble beginnings, right? How he came up with absolutely nothing, was living in his friends' houses in high school. We hear about that happening in college and so on. He was living with his friends in high school. And so how he came from nothing to where he's making millions of dollars a year in net profits. So I love that part of his story because he is the most transparent guest I believe we've ever had in the show. Now, there are a lot of people that talk about the number of deals they do, how much revenue they drive. He came in to talk about profits. And really, at the end of the day, that is the most important number. So he came in as transparent as possible. He shared how he's building a brand, become a local celebrity, leveraging social media for deals. For example, in 1 month, he had 11 deals that came in where he didn't have to spend $1 on marketing. And then how he also basically what feels like an event business, right? He's spending tens of thousands of dollars a month in events for people to come to his live events where they can talk about real estate, much like a meetup. But man, I don't know a lot of people that are spending more than $10,000, let alone $38,000, and how he's also getting a sponsor. So even though it's $38,000, it's all at no cost to him. So we talked about that. Definitely check out this episode with Santini.
When I was growing up, we grew up very, I mean, it's relative to what you think poor is.
Mm-hmm.
For us, it was poor compared to where we lived.
Yeah.
And it was like my outlet, since probably like the 4th grade. My brother was, he's 3 years older than me. He was good growing up. And I always followed him around and, seeing how hard he worked. And, we became obsessed with basketball. And we're like, you know what, we want to go to the NBA or go get scholarship somewhere. So we really bought into that. And, throughout the years, we would, wake up 5 a.m. and shoot 500 shots a day and just really commit to just becoming the best players in our area. Mm-hmm. And I think that really built that foundation for me because I know how hard it is to like I didn't even go Division I, and I worked my ass off as a Division III basketball player. So like the amount of work it takes to be great at anything is incredible. You know, obviously height and all that stuff plays a factor, but you know, luck isn't always on your side. So you got to work. You got to outwork everybody.
Yeah.
And you know, it also comes with leadership and a lot of people liking you, being coachable. So all of that really helped me become a good business owner and an entrepreneur.
So you think that all translated from basketball onto your business?
I think so, for sure. There was a lot of work I had to do as a leader with business, but I think it was more like of a natural flow for me because as a point guard, you know, you have to lead people. You have to lead by example. You have to, you know, keep them motivated and encourage them and, you know, obviously find the right pieces and have the right chemistry. So all those things literally translate to our
Tell them
businesses.
where to go, tell them what to do.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you have to have confidence. You know, you have to believe that things are happening before they do. And
You
have
had to
see things.
exert and impose your will.
Exactly.
You know, I got, you know, 3 kids, and my oldest one, like, she just doesn't want to play sports. Like, she plays volleyball, but she's like, it's fun to play like pickup, but she doesn't want to go anymore. And I'm like pushing her, and she's like, I don't want to do it. It's like, why is it so important? He's like, it actually has nothing to do with sports. I just want you to learn leadership skills.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. I want you to learn, like, you know, when you lose, like, you can be introspective and figure out why you lost. And like, let's figure out the lessons here and how to give you a better team player and a leader.
Yeah.
I'm losing this battle. Right.
Yeah.
But,
exactly.
but those are the things that I picked up, right? Like, don't have your experience or your skills and success, but, you know, playing a lot of intramural basketball, it's the same thing. It's like, you know, it's my bad. Like, you drive home, it's like, that's the shot I missed. I missed that pass. Why did I turn it over there? Like, that was such a stupid turnover. I can't believe I did that. Like, those are kind of things. I don't know. Yeah. I imagine you had those same things.
Yeah, oh, for sure. You got to learn how to control your temperament and your emotion and be able to live for the next game or the next play.
Right.
Make sure that your opponents don't see that emotion because they'll attack you, you know, if you're playing defense, whatever. So yeah, there's so many things that just if you work on your, you know, whatever sport you play, if you can work on your emotion, that'll translate over to the pressure that you deal with every day in business. You know, or
you're getting your last minute shot to go take your next one.
Yep.
So your last deal that you lost,
100%.
You're ready to focus on the next deal.
Yeah. Yeah. So for me, it was a matter, like, this was the only thing I had growing up, basketball. Like, when I tell you we had nothing, like, this saved our lives because coaches took us in. Like, when I was 15 years old, my mom had severe diabetes. And I remember coming home from school and she was on the couch having a seizure. And she was never the same since. Like, something happened to her mind. And from that point on, I'm like, I moved to my friend's house. Then I moved to another friend's house. And, you know, at that time, I was one of the best players in South Jersey. So, like, if I didn't have basketball, no one would have probably helped me. You know, I would have ended up who knows where. So, and my brother was off to, like, college or prep school at that time. So it was just me. So luckily there was a private school, like one of the best private schools in South Jersey. They basically paid for me to go to their school. And I played basketball there. And that was a game changer because I moved in with this millionaire family. At that time, I'm 15, 16 years old. I never really had discipline growing up. You know, basketball was what made me disciplined, but there wasn't like parenting going on. Like, I could stay out till midnight. No one would care what I was doing. But when I got to school, it was like I got to see, like, families, how they function. You know, how, you know, they had 3 kids and, like, how they're doing their homework every day and they're getting up early and they're having, you know, there's nutrition.
Seeing routine and
routine, yeah. And then just parenting, you know, and then I go to a private school where there's all, you know, wealthy people. And I'm like, all right, so I got to act like that's how you're supposed to behave. So yeah, that was a great time in my life to grow as a human being, you know? And if it wasn't for the game of basketball, like, those doors wouldn't be there.
You wouldn't be exposed to it.
No, at all. And being popular, because obviously you're an athlete, you know, just it was a great experience. And then it also got me to college, right? I was terrible at school. Like, literally, I barely passed. I had no interest in it.
Yeah.
And same thing in college, you know. I only went to college to play basketball, to literally have a roof over my head and have meals and be able to play. And that's all I cared about. So by the time when basketball was over for me, I had 2 years of school left. And you can imagine, like, this is my identity. So I had to reinvent myself. Still have 2 years of school that I literally hate going to class. And I just buckled down. I'm like, you know what? I have to do this. It's either that or I go to the Army or who knows. I end up a blackjack dealer in Atlantic City. Real estate I had no clue about real estate at this time. And also by that time too, I had no financial literacy. I had like 6 credit cards, maxed them all out, didn't even pay them. Had hospital bills, didn't even ignored them. So I was in collections.
Yeah.
So no one to guide me really through that time financially. And I was scared to tell people, I just dealt with it. I didn't deal with it actually. So when I graduated college and I remember I was at the park. It was I forget where I was. I was playing basketball. My phone rang, and I was applying to a bunch of jobs. And the HR manager calls me, and she's like, "Hey, we want to offer you this position." It was a $40,000 a year position, and you would think that someone offered me $1 million because I was like, "This is another breaking point in my life where I have another opportunity now to make something of my life." So I was just so grateful to take that job selling. I didn't care what I was selling. I was selling office supplies, but I didn't give a shit. I was like, I'm going to make the most. I want to be the best at it.
Right.
So that's that gratitude and that adversity just growing up. I think it all shapes you,
Oh, absolutely shapes you.
It's important.
So, and then we had one of my all-time favorite episodes, Stuart Denyer with New Western. Now, I first heard about New Western in 2019 when I went to Dallas, Texas for We Live 19. This is when I got to meet Gary Vee. I got to speak on stage at Max Maxwell's event in front of 1,000 people. An incredible event. As you guys know that have been following my story, one of the most impactful moments in my career. Well, while I was there in Dallas, Texas, I did not hear a lot of great things about New Western. As a matter of fact, at one point in my career, I actually got a cease and desist notice from New Western, which we talk about on the show. But with all that being said, I got a chance to meet Stu, the founder of New Western, and they're doing anywhere between 15,000 and 20,000 wholesale deals per year. A wild number. It's really hard to even fathom it. So we talked about how he dislikes the term wholesaling and how it's ruining the branding of our industry, and that if we don't begin to self-regulate, we're all going to be out of business in the near future. So he talked a lot about building a brand, having a reputable business, and making sure that you're transparent and fully disclosing to all parties involved all the time so that you can operate ethically. And then the other thing too, which, why this is one of my favorite episodes, is in the comment section on this episode, there were a lot of negative comments. Maybe not a lot. There were a handful of negative comments saying he was not sharing enough. He wasn't talking about how he built his wholesaling business or how he's doing wholesaling specifically today, right? And I think people missed the point. It's one of my all-time favorite episodes because he talks about how to run an enterprise business, how to build a wholesale company you can actually sell, right? He's not going to talk about where he's pulling the list. He's not going to talk about where he's sourcing salespeople in the front lines to run New Western. That's not his thing. If he knows what list they're pulling from, he's not going to be at 15,000, 20,000 wholesale deals a year. The struggles he has that we talk about on the episode are the answers to a lot of questions that a lot of us who are trying to scale our business to the next level, we talk about that. How to source talent from Wall Street to be your executive C-level talent. It's one of the episodes where I've had multiple successful people reach out to me and it's like, wow, thanks for that episode, because he closed a few loops. He connected a couple of dots for them that were still open. So definitely check this out, because you want to build a company that's doing millions and millions and millions of dollars a year. Stu Denyer talks about that.
You mentioned the word wholesale before.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like that word, and it's not because I haven't got an issue with the word wholesale,
Mm-hmm.
but there's probably a number of bad actors. There are a number of bad actors out there,
Right.
that do nothing but, I think, cast a very large shadow
Mm-hmm.
over this industry. And I think that word is synonymous with particularly that section of the industry.
Right.
And you're not always going to get every business practice right all the time. And frankly, I spent a lot of time around reading the law because of situations that you've highlighted before and trying to understand. And there's a lot of gaps in it. And it's just not clear. And you can call and ask for answers and you won't get it. And so sometimes you've got to make judgment calls, and sometimes you make a wrong judgment call. But there's a lot of people that know what they're doing. It's just simply not correct. And I think that they push forward or they justify it somehow. And that tag wholesaler is used so much on social media. And I look at a guy dressed like a rodeo clown or something like that that's whooping around on the stage. Yeah, and I do have issue with it. I don't think it looks good on us. And I don't think that anyone that's in investment real estate, at some stage, everyone's going to get tired of it. Everyone's going to get dragged in for somebody else's behavior, and you're going to get tarred with the same brush. And I think that at some stage, we've got to say, okay, I think that I don't want to be associated with that.
Right.
I think we're at that stage now.
What are some of the most egregious things you're seeing that are going to get us all into trouble as an industry?
There was a change in, this is just one example.
Sure.
There's a lot of them out there, and almost everybody will know what we're talking about. And nobody's perfect. I'm sure that I got agents and people that are doing things, so I'm not trying to say that we get it right every time, not at all. But there are some people out there that I think go out of their way. So there was a change in law in South Carolina. I think that's probably well documented, and there are different opinions, and I have mine, and I know that they're different to some. But there was a thread that I was reading in which a guy said, I just got a letter from the state, and it was saying not to behave in a certain way. And then the next 5 or 6 comments were just like, screw it up, throw it in the trash, carry on, they'll never come for you. And I just was in shock.
Wow. That was the advice.
That was the advice. Somebody's finally stepped in and said, I don't know who these people are, but you can't listen to that sort of advice. And, I don't know what we're supposed to do.
Free
at
legal
that
advice
stage.
on Facebook.
Yeah. Come get it here. Again, stuff like that. It's just, that's on social media. That's going to live forever. And
With your name on it.
And you just tagged it. And again, if that's the mentality of, I don't know how many comments now, again, I don't do that thing much, but that's not good. That's not the approach. Find out what it is you did wrong. Maybe you knew what you were doing wrong and change it. I don't know, but just throwing it in the trash and imagining and everyone else just laughing about it. That's an example, but there are so many. And
can you think of another one or two off the top of your head?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're going to make everybody just hate me or something here, Steve. There's lots of instances out there. There's lots of different approaches to do real estate. Let's just stick with the one we've already discussed. Yeah. I think if you're doing a certain behavior, you should disclose what you're doing. And if you're worried about disclosing it, then you shouldn't do it.
Right.
And if you think that your disclosure is going to stop you from being able to do it, then you shouldn't do it.
Yeah.
And I don't. That would be one right there. I could just go with that one.
Pretty good rules of thumb.
And yeah. So that would be.
Yeah, we have Jerry Norton. He's been on the show a couple of times. And one of the things that we talk about, because he's also a licensed real estate agent, was a broker owner. I'm a licensed real estate agent. I was a broker owner. And the things we've talked about is like, when someone says, don't go get your real estate license, that just increases your risk. The answer that we both ponder.
The last few words of what you said.
Yeah.
Increases my risk?
Yeah.
What are you suggesting? I agree with what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
That should immediately bring it into frame what we're discussing.
Right.
Like if you have already got a risk that you're trying to hide in the shadows with, and you're worried about getting licensed, it's going to just make you more of a target, then you've already got the problem.
Right.
And not everybody. I'm not trying to say everybody.
Well, but the point is that there's always a few bad apples that spoil it.
Yeah.
Right, for everybody else. And that's basically the message. Is like, hey, like, no one's saying don't wholesale, but if you're going to wholesale, don't do things egregiously where you know you can get in trouble.
Yeah, and you don't always know. And again, I was trying to make
was
that
like
admission
intentionally,
earlier.
like intentionally.
You didn't know, and it's not always to understand and interpret the law. But when you intentionally know, yeah, and there's too many people doing that.
Right. So I had the honor a couple weeks ago we had an event. Chris Iman was on a show a month or two ago. Big player here in the Phoenix market. He was hearing murmurs that wholesaling was going to get regulated in Phoenix. So he has this bright idea. Why don't we just bring the real estate commissioner into my real estate investor association event, and then let's have a conversation about it. Brilliant, right? And so I'm standing in the back of the room, and I'm listening to her talk. And as she was speaking, and personally, I already disliked her before, like I even met her, because she's already costing me money in other things.
Yeah.
But as she's speaking, she was saying, I don't know why they asked me to become the commissioner. I'm like the last person they should ask. I come from a family whose wealth was created from real estate investing. I'm not quote unquote realtor friendly. I'm like a real estate investor sitting there. And so then they started asking questions. What are you looking for? What are you opposed to? And she says, I have zero problems with wholesaling. I think wholesaling is totally fine. Here are my 3 problems. If you guys could not do these 3 things, there won't be any problems. And if you have friends doing these things, maybe slap them upside the head and ask them to stop doing these 3 things.
Right on.
First, the contracting properties, when there is zero chance you will ever close on it.
Sounds like a great one to start with.
Right? And I think was it fraud by deceit, or it's whatever, but it's clearly a material fact to a contract. She said if you're contracting properties,
If you don't have the money to buy it, don't put it on the contract.
or know someone like that can fund it, right? If you have a hard money lender, something.
Yep.
But if you have zero intention to ever close on it, that's fraud,
I echo that.
and she will forward your contact info to the attorney general. She says that's not a real estate problem. That is a criminal activity, and she just forwards all those complaints to the attorney general.
Okay.
Second, if you contract the property and you don't close on it, and you refuse to release your memorandum, now you've put the homeowner in a bind that they don't deserve to be in, because you promised to buy it for, say, for example, $200,000, and you want to do a price drop to $160,000, and homeowner says no. You have an obligation to close at $200,000. Seller's unwillingness to lower the price is not their problem. It's your problem. And again, that's not a real estate thing. She redirects you to the attorney general.
Again, sounds reasonable.
Sounds reasonable. And a third one, I don't agree with, but she's the commissioner, so she has a stronger voice.
Yeah.
Is she believes sub 2 is a problem. She thinks that if you are, what's the word? The moment you buy a property, buyer and seller have an obligation to notify the mortgage company immediately. And she says failure to disclose that is a violation of the due on sale clause.
I agree with her.
All right. So on that one, I didn't agree with her.
I think
either way.
I think that is actually written into.
Is that written into the mortgage?
Yeah, it's in there.
There's
The
a
language
notify.
is in there. You have agreed to it to do that. However,
I might need to look at that again. I haven't looked at it for a long time.
It's been years since I looked at it too,
Yeah.
but I believe that language is in there. However, if you do mail that letter off and disclose, I'm not aware of one person in the US, in fact, I'm aware of like very few cases, I think it's less than a handful, where they have called that note due.
Really?
So that was what I found. Again, it's been a long time, but
That
I
goes
looked
back
into
to
this
your
pretty
thing about
closely.
disclosing.
Yeah, that was kind of what I was trying to. But yeah, I am aware that when you sign on that dotted line, I believe that you do say, hey, I will acknowledge and I will let you know.
Right.
Have you ever done a hard money loan?
Yes.
Would you like to know if somebody did something like that to you?
You mean as a lender?
Yeah.
Oh, no, I haven't done it on the lending side.
Okay. Again, I think if you were a hard money lender and you did that and someone did something like that to you and completely changed the documents, I think you'd want to know. If
Right.
I let you know and put you on notice, I let you know.
You've done your part.
I've done my part.
Right.
So I looked into it, and again, this is probably, it's probably more than a decade ago when I looked into this because it was a fascinating subject. But I'll go ahead and say I'm 100% that documentation, that language is written into the paperwork.
Well, I will sit here and tell you I've never studied it.
I did, but again, it's been a long time ago.
Yeah, I am aware of a due on sale clause as a paragraph, right? You got the black bold font, due on sale clause, and my understanding was they reserve the right when it changes hands.
Yeah, and you know,
Yeah.
you can balance it.
Sure.
And
But I'm with you. If it says you must disclose, then you must disclose. I just don't remember it saying it must disclose. But I'm
Yeah,
not a big sub 2 guy either.
Yeah, I'm not a huge sub 2 guy, and there were many reasons why, but this was one of the main reasons why we never sort of did it, and because we wanted to really focus on what we were doing. But I think they're there. You will find in a lot of that when you're signing on the line. I think that there is language to suggest that.
So you're okay with her positions?
I'm okay with her positions. Yeah.
Yeah. And so when you're saying stop monkeying around, like that is kind of what you're referring to.
Yeah, examples of things like that. You know, when it's really obvious. Most of those were pretty obvious. If you didn't close on the deal, I understand the use of memorandums, and if there was a fault on your end, it seems fairly obvious, no?
Yeah. I mean, I've got no issues with memorandums. If they change their mind, we sign a legal agreement.
Yeah.
But if you can't honor the contract, like what are you doing?
What are you doing?
Yeah.
And a lot of those are kind of like that. When you start looking at things,
Unfortunately.
you're kind of like, golly, what were you doing?
Yeah.
Like, in what world were you justifying this?
Yeah.
But yeah, most of them are really obvious.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's why I have a bit of a problem with that word. Not because I necessarily disagree with it, don't like the word, just because I think of a lot of things that are associated with that.
Right. Yeah, the people that are screaming about it.
Yeah.
Right.
Hey, my name is Brian. I'm a real estate investor. Ian's sales training has helped me buy more houses at a deeper discount. Most recently, Ian helped me reframe a question which resulted in me buying a house for less money than other offers the seller had on the table. If you're considering sales training, I don't think you can go wrong with Ian's.
I'm filming this video for the man himself, Mr. Ian Ross. The guy crushes. The guy's the best person in sales I've ever seen. I've invested elsewhere and I haven't got the same results. I've gone from being a seller, making 5K a month, to being a hybrid role, making 11K a month, to now be 4 months down the line from 5K to on a closing opportunity, inbound, full calendar, with the best opportunity, the best offer in my space. OTE is around 20K a month from month 2. So I've gone from 5K to 20K. If that's not a return on your investment, I don't know what is, man. If you're a salesperson and you don't invest in sales training, you're going to get left behind because your job is to be better at sales, and sales training directly makes you more money.
If you like what you just heard and you'd like to have similar types of results, similar success, text CLOSE, C-L-O-S-E, to 33777, and we'll see if you qualify to join Advanced Sales Mastery. We are taking people from good to great.
And finally, we got Michael Smith. Now, Michael and I, we've worked together quite a bit. He's one of my favorite people. This guy takes what I do and what I believe to be true, and he 10X's it, right? I believed in coaching. I believed in mentorship. With the amount of money I spent in personal development, I could probably buy a really, really nice house, right? Well, he spends significantly more than that. And so we talk about the importance of personal development, and I actually got to witness it firsthand. We just had an event 2 weeks ago, and he flew his entire acquisition team into our office so we can train him together for 2 full days. Not only does he believe in personal development, he also believes in investing in his team. So we talked a lot about how he was able to do $700K in his very first year and how he attributed so much to personal development, right? He's basically paid to be in every room possible so he can get the best information and implement it inside his business. So we talked about that. We talked about the sales process. He's been one of the best salespeople his entire career. And he talked about how incorporating our sales process has helped his team take it to the next level. As just a quick plug, we had his team come out here, like I said, a couple weeks ago. On the first day back, they did $100K in revenue. I thought that was pretty awesome. And we also talked about how his motivation was his grandfather talking about don't blow money on expensive cars. That's not for people like us, and how that was the fuel to push him to go so hard. And we also got to talk about, the fun stuff like cars. There are a lot of people, gurus you follow, you respect, people I look up to and listen to, where we disagree, where they talk about how you should never spend money on cars. Michael and I have different opinions on that, and we talk about it on this episode. Check it out.
Pick a poison. I am a car fanatic. I've loved cars. I remember seeing like Lamborghini Murcielagos and Gelatos when I was a kid, and my grandpa would be like, you can never afford that. And so I'm just a car fanatic for sure.
Does that stick out in your head when you said that?
Oh, yeah, definitely. It's that and just like expensive things in general. I remember my grandpa he's super modest, never understands the high life kind of thing. And Yeah, I remember every moment he's ever told me, like, oh, that person's only showboating and all that stuff. And don't get me wrong, there are definitely people with Ferraris, Lamborghinis, all those things, and they're showboating. But there are definitely those people, and I'm one of those people who just enjoy the car. That is my art. I appreciate it for what it is, not for anything else.
Yeah, we had that conversation. You were here for our sales leadership
Yeah.
training a week or two ago. And we were talking about, do you remember what I said about Lamborghinis?
I don't remember exactly, but it was definitely a knock on Lamborghini owners.
Yeah, I mean, all I was saying was there's only one reason why Lamborghini, and so they can post about it on Instagram, right? And it's a marketing expense at this point, but it's
My
because
CPA won't let me write them off, sadly, because he doesn't say he says they're not ordinary or necessary.
he's probably protecting you.
He is. I'm okay with it too.
So a principle I learned along the way, as far as marketing and sales goes, is like there's three levels.
Mhm.
There's the mind, the brain.
Yep.
Right. That's the logical. Doesn't sell very well.
No.
Right. And then there's the heart. Right. And the heart is like, how do you feel and this and that.
Mhm.
And then the lowest level is the loins.
Yeah.
Right. And this is identity.
Mhm.
Right. Like people will pay a premium for identity.
Oh yeah. Totally.
Right. So Lamborghinis, I put in that category.
I agree with you, but something about a revving natural aspirated V10 engine just brings out an emotion.
Oh, I completely agree with that. I love the sound of Italian cars.
Yeah.
I completely am on board.
Blows
I
my
love
mind.
cars. I love cars. But I'm bringing this up because you have more than a few.
I do. That is correct.
Right. So I just kind of want to drive into this point.
Uh-huh.
Like the things that might have driven you.
Yeah.
Right. So your grandfather says that's not for you, or you'll never afford it, or if they have it, it's because you're showboating.
Yep. Those
Right.
were the
And those are the things that are etched in your brain.
Yeah, definitely.
You think that leads to your car collection today?
I think so. I remember when I bought my first, I had two Shelbys, a GT 350R and a GT 500. I didn't tell anyone about them for 2 years. Like I was embarrassed that I had these cars. I was embarrassed that I loved them and that and me and my girlfriend would take them out all the weekends. And like, I didn't tell her stepdad was a lot and the same as my grandpa. I didn't tell him for like 3 months that I had this car. He was so mad that because he was a car guy. He just didn't see like it logical. He was very logical brain. Didn't matter. You could have $10 million in the bank. He's not going to spend $100,000 on a car.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what's the point of having $10 million in the bank if you're not going to go have fun? Like,
Right.
to me, that's fun.
Go ahead.
So it definitely affected me. Like I still haven't told my grandpa that I have a Lambo. I've had it for 4 months. He has no idea.
Yeah.
I have a Porsche. He has no idea that I own a Porsche. I've had that thing for almost a year now. So yeah, I do it for me, not anyone else. But I think like it's always in the back of your mind that someone else is going to judge you for this one way or another. And I've learned too, those cars inspire people. I'll be out driving and someone will be like, Dad, I want to have that car. And I've corrected the dads like, oh, you'll never get that. It's like, no, if he wants that and he puts in the work, he can get it. Like there's trillions of dollars printed. Why can't he just have his 200,000? That's not that much.
It kind of reminds me of Wolf of Wall Street. I don't remember the scene exactly, but it was like, if you can show me a check, whatever, like,
yeah.
right? Is that you can inspire people.
Yep.
And my dad was the same thing, like it's 2024. I want to say it was like 5 or 6 years ago. He finally sold his 1998 Dodge Caravan.
Yeah.
Right. He had that Dodge Caravan for like 20 years. And I remember growing up, same things like, Dad, how come we don't have nice cars? Because we had, like, my first car was a Pontiac 6000, which is an awful car. It was 85 horsepower. They had the, Oldsmobile Oldsmobile Silhouette, Dodge. Like, these are just not the funnest cars.
Yeah.
And I was like, Dad, why don't you work hard? Like, you have a really nice house. Like, why don't you have a nice car? He's like, oh, those are for people that just want to put it on their credit.
Yeah, and showboat. Yeah, that's my grandpa. Same thing. I think his only vehicle that he's bought new was a '99 F-150. He sold that to me in 2015. So what? 26 years. For I think $1,000. I sold it for $1,000 2 years later. But it had 380,000 miles, all original, everything.
Yeah.
And so he literally drove that thing into the dirt. And even when he got another truck, he bought it a year old because he's like, I'm never buying a new truck again. I'm like, it worked out. What's the big deal? Just go buy a new truck, man.
Yeah.
He kept the old one because he didn't want to put miles on a new one.
Yeah. So
I think it's scarcity mindset though too.
oh, there's definitely a scarcity mindset, and I think it comes with your upbringing.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
Like my dad came over here. I mean, he had everything taken away. Like
They had much harder lives than we did.
Yeah,
in the grand scheme of things.
the adversity that my parents went through, your grandfather went through, way harsher than the adversity that we went through.
Like we got to see all the people who went through adversity and overcame it due to the internet and things like that. They didn't have that.
Right.
So like my grandpa been in Ohio his whole life. So like he had tough times, but he didn't have like the adversity of coming into a new country like your dad did. But he definitely had adversity, and he never saw other people overcoming adversity. So they were always scared that like,
mobility was not as much of an option.
Yeah, we can go look on the internet when there's a problem that we've run into. Oh, has anyone overcome this problem? Yeah. I mean, there's always people who don't overcome it as well.
Sure.
But you get to choose which side you want to
But
focus
there's a
on.
roadmap you can follow.
Yeah. Whereas my grandparents and your dad didn't have that.
Yeah, there's just W-2
Yeah.
forever.
Yeah, that's all they thought.
Yeah. So one of my pet peeves
Yeah.
is when someone says you shouldn't spend money on cars until you have X.
Yeah.
You want to speak on that?
Oh, well, I'm assuming it's going to talk about X amount of real estate.
X
or
amount
rental
of
income.
real estate, X amount of income, X amount of dollars in the bank account, all these things, right? Like they judge you on buying cars, but they'll never judge you on the house or the vacations or anything else or the watches.
Yeah, that's what I do. I'm going through it right now, my child support. They're like, why do you have all these cars? Because my tax return doesn't show I'm actually making any money, as
Right.
I'm sure it doesn't shock you. But my argument is, hey, if I go on a vacation and spend $10,000, it's gone. Poof. I can never sell that vacation. I can't go, hey, here's this picture of me in Jamaica. I paid $10,000 for this experience. Write me a check for, I'll sell it to you for $9,500. I'll give you a great deal. And that doesn't work that way.
Right.
The Lamborghini in particular, I bought it for, I think, $315. I could literally sell that thing for $390, and I put 2,000 miles on it in 4 months. You can't. And that's a ton of fun to me. Like that gives me more fun than a trip to Jamaica ever will, personally. I get it. It's not for everyone. May not be for you. That's okay. But my argument is I could set, as long as I can always afford the payments on that thing and I put 50% down, I can sell it and be out of it. If I go on a vacation, I can't ever sell that and get that money back ever.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are paying for vacations credit cards, by the way. They
Yes,
won't. They
they
won't
are.
tell you that. They won't tell you that.
That's it. Those are my 7 favorite episodes this year. Like I said, it was really tough to pick through all of them, how to really select just 7. There were a lot of honorable mentions. There were a lot right there on the bubble. It was kind of hard it was kind of hard to figure out which one to go with. So I hope you guys got a lot of value. And I want to say thank you so much. You guys are watching these episodes. You guys are listening on iTunes and Spotify. It means a lot. So thank you very much. I appreciate you guys for continuing to watch our videos, listen to our podcast, and sharing it with all your friends. Thank you.
Shout out to Steve Trang. Jump on the Steve Trang. Disruptors.